anytime. Again, if you would like to ask Congressman Ogle's question during this live telephone town hall, please press *3 on your phone at any time. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at any time during this call by pressing *6. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Congressman Andy Ogles. Take it away, Congressman.
Well, thank you, Grant, and thank you for everybody who is joining us both on the Teletown Hall but also online. I know we're streaming across platforms. Look, but there's a lot of things we can touch on, and quite frankly, there's been so much going on. I could just talk for an hour. We're not going to do that, by the way. In fact, Emma, comms director, told me that I can't talk forever, and she because she wants to get to more of your questions. But there are a couple of really important updates. I want to give you one. If you are interested in a passport, July 29th through 31st, we are having a passport fair. So we'll get the information out there on our official website. You can go to the State Department's website. That's huge as we try to take constituent services and resources into the district for you guys. So if you're looking for passports, and we get a lot of passport requests, so that's a big date coming up. But the main thing, and I literally, for you guys online, I'm holding up the letter. I just got this letter today. So this is for our veterans. So in Nashville, we have a little over 26,488 veterans who call Davidson County, Greater Nashville home, or Davidson County home. Obviously, there's more veterans in Greater Nashville, but is to get a CBOC. So it's a community-based outpatient clinic in Nashville to better serve Middle Tennessee. And this is taking me 2.5 years to get this done, but it's a $74 million project that's going to be built in Nashville for our veterans. And so we'll get you this information, but literally I received this letter today. I was notified last night. I was at the White House with the president last night, and I was notified last night that I was getting this letter. But again, this literally is breaking news. Great news for our veterans. Promises made, promises kept. I'll continue to fight for our veterans. And with that, I guess we will go to questions. Obviously, there's the border. There's all the stuff that we've been working on, crypto. You've got the Epstein stuff, so we'll take it away. And I know that one of the questions, and probably top of mind for a lot of folks, is the Epstein files. What's going to happen there? So I signed on to Tim Burchett's resolution to subpoena Miss Maxwell. It's just so we can get to the truth. And let's be clear. If the Democrats had any incriminating evidence, because they had these files for 4 years. In fact, Senator Marsha Blackburn in 2023 tried to subpoena those files, and the Democrats in the Senate blocked the release. And so if there was anything in there that was truly going to incriminate President Trump or any Republican at all, it would have been weaponized against Republicans, and they probably would have released it, quite frankly, before the election. So look, let's get the information out there. Some of it may have to be redacted because of ongoing investigations, but let's start getting that information to the American people. I'll do my part working with the White House to get this information released. But look, at the end of the day, there's so much important work that we have to get to. Let's get this Epstein stuff done. Let's move past it. Look, he was a freak. He was a predator. He deserved what he got. Good riddance. All right, so next question.
So again, if you have a question for Congressman Ogles, you press *3 on your pad at any time, or *6 to sign up for our newsletter. And Congressman, here's the first question coming from David Rose. He asks, when are we, based on all the proof being released, going to see arrests, prosecutions, and imprisonments of all those involved in sedition and treason? I assume David's talking about the information that Tulsi Gabbard has been releasing, Congressman. What's your answer there?
So Tulsi is a friend, and she's quite frankly doing an amazing job. And so if you haven't been watching the news, and if you're not, I can't say that I blame you. But that being said, so Tulsi's released information that the Russia collusion was in fact orchestrated. They knew it was false, and they released this information to try to damage the president or Trump's credibility. Now, the question I think specifically is, will this trace back to the White House? We know that it does in fact trace to the White House. The president, there's broad definitions when it comes to immunity. I am skeptical that this will ever kind of land at Obama's feet, other than just the truth Now, those around him may very well face prosecutions. Obviously, that is up to the Justice Department. And so Tulsi Gabbard has taken all of the evidence that she has, and she's referred that to Pam Bondi for a more thorough an investigation. And so stay tuned. When and where there'll be arrests, I don't know. But what I will say is, quite frankly, I've defended Pam Bondi, and whether you like her or don't like her, when you look at the murderers, the rapists, and the child traffickers that are being arrested, the illegals that are being arrested, the pedophile rings that have been busted up. Meanwhile, she's also coaling the Department of Justice with these activist folks that were literally weaponizing the government against the American people, which, by the way, our founding fathers warned us against and warned us about. And so she's got a lot on her plate. She's doing it with less manpower, or woman power for that matter. And we see aggressive action by Pam Bondi. I have no reason to doubt her. And look, I tend to be fairly plain spoken. So, I'm sure at some point we'll get to the Belmont issue. We have a lot of great institutions, educational institutions in Nashville, but Belmont stepped across the line, and I'm holding them accountable. I think they're going to correct course. In fact, I have a letter or an email saying they will. But that being said, I'll get you the information. I'll get it to you when I can. And that's why I was successful as a mayor and why I became a congressman, is during COVID, I shared the information I had. I was plain spoken about it, and I was aggressive in defending liberty. And that's what I'll continue to do. Next question.
So throughout the night, we're going to be asking everyone on the line a series of poll questions, and this is how it will work in order to gauge the opinion of the audience here. We'll ask the question, number 1 on your phone means yes, number 2 means no. Again, number 1 on your phone means yes, number 2 means no. Here's the first poll question of the night. Do you support the House passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill? 1 is yes, 2 is no. Again, that question is, do you support the House's passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill? 1 yes, 2 no. As we give a little bit of time, Congressman Ogles, for these individuals to take that and get focused back on the phone here. It's interesting you bring up the Belmont University stuff. And from now, Julia asked this question: what is the problem you are having with Belmont University?
Yeah, great question. And again, I want to emphasize, Nashville, from a reputation standpoint, we geographically speaking, a great location, great music, great food, great industry, Healthcare USA, and we have these amazing institutions of higher learning: Vanderbilt, Belmont, David Lipscomb. You have Meharry, you have TSU. We have a lot of resources there in Nashville to serve not only Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, but the country. That being said, when you look at Belmont, so you have an executive order that was passed back in February by the president, Executive Order 14173, which prohibits DEI at the university level. So if you're taking federal funds, so it's an executive order by the President of the United States. And what we've seen and why we have this information is because whistleblowers, students, faculty, those affiliated with Belmont, came forward with documents and proof, mind you, that Belmont was not complying with the president's executive order. They were still accepting federal funds. And I'll just give you, so this idea of, and I'm showing those folks that are online, but they have this hub, which is where the rebranded diversity and inclusion page on the website. But when you look closely at the link, it still says diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So they didn't even really change anything other than they rebranded it. And we have communications as such. Now, what I will say is that there was an email sent out by the president of the university, right here, saying that they are going to bring in a third party to look at their current policies and activities and make sure they're in compliance with federal law. So that is what we expect. That's what we want. And so whether it's University of Tennessee out in Knoxville, whether it's Vanderbilt, whether it's Belmont, David Lipscomb, Harvard, etc., the president has spoken. He has written an executive order. And if you want to continue to get federal funds, you have to be compliant. And by the way, DEI is reverse discrimination. And I took issue with the president of Belmont, and I'm not disparaging him at all, but he basically defended the university and its discrimination by quoting scripture. And what I said in my response was, look, if you are discriminating, reverse discrimination through DEI in quoting scripture, that doesn't make you a better Christian than your neighbor. It makes you a hypocrite. So instead of quoting scripture, focus on the executive order, take the action that you are taking, and I commend you for that, but you have to correct course, you have to change your policies, and if we find you discriminating, race, color, whatever, we are going to hold you accountable. And there's other universities that are also included in this. Obviously, because I'm from Tennessee, Belmont is kind of sorted to the top of the list, but there's other universities that are doing the same thing, and we're going to hold them accountable as well. The President of the United States have spoken. I have a daughter who's going off to college. I'm sending her to get an education, not to be indoctrinated. So if you want to be woke in your personal time, that's fine. But if you're accepting federal funds, do your job, teach information, don't indoctrinate. With that, next question.
So let's go over this poll question that was just asked. If you don't remember the question, here it was. Do you support the House's passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill? 77% said yes, 23% said no. Congressman Ogles, any reaction to that poll or reaction to just the One Big Beautiful Bill at all?
Well, so I was one of those that worked very closely on the Big Beautiful Bill. I'm not surprised at the response. There was a lot of effort put into this. And what I can say is, just a couple of weeks ago as we were working on this, I was one of those roughly 10 members of Congress that was at the White House. We were with the president. We were at a conference table. Literally, you had the President of the United States, you had the Vice President, myself, and again, a handful of other members of Congress. You had Russ Vought and Stephen Miller, both of whom are friends. And we worked through what are the weaknesses of the Big Beautiful Bill? What are those things that are in the Big Beautiful Bill that the President, that I as a member of Congress have promised the American people, but we expect the Senate to take out? And then how do we kind of continue to maintain or hit those objectives, make those promises we've made to the American people? So, it's an honor to be at that table, quite frankly. In the last couple of months, I've been at the White House multiple times. In fact, the Friday before last, I actually declined an invitation to the White House to be with the president because I needed to get home to my family, and I felt guilty about that. But at the same token, yes, I'm a member of Congress, but I'm also a husband and a father, so I had to turn down the president at a bill signing. By the way, he did give me a shout out, and which I appreciated. And then the funny thing is I was actually watching a Marvel movie with the kids, and I'm getting out my phone to text the president, just thank you. And my little one kind of kicks me, and I drop the phone, and then I accidentally call the president. And so, it's a bit surreal to be watching a Marvel movie with your children and accidentally call the president of the United States. I don't do that normally, but that being said, thank you, Mr. President, for being so understanding. Next question.
And if anybody wants to get in line to ask Congressman Ogles a question, remember, all you have to do is press *3 on your phone. That'll put you in the queue to ask a question to Congressman Ogles. And also don't forget to press *6 to subscribe to our newsletter. We'll give you all updates going on from D.C. and District as well. And Congressman, the next question here comes from Jeff in Spring Hill area. He says, I know there's a lot of money being spent on ICE. I want to get rid of criminals, but is there another way people can register, so they can work and not be in fear?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question and really refers to the next step. And so I've been very outspoken on this issue. No amnesty. No amnesty. No amnesty. And quite frankly, I'm of the opinion that if you came here illegally, and by the way, you'll hear individuals talk about, well, these folks are here coming for work, and they don't have a criminal record. If you're coming into the country illegally, that in fact is a criminal act. If you are working without a Social Security number, that is a criminal act. If you're working with a Social Security number that you received or was issued under false pretense, that is a criminal act. So this notion that they don't have criminal records is not true. Now, to your point, when you look at the ICE raids, say in Nashville, where you had Freddie O'Connell, who's really working against ICE, who doxed federal agents, he was defending murderers, rapists, drug traffickers, child traffickers. These are the folks that were being targeted. Now, look, if you're here illegally, the operative word there is illegal. And by the way, if I go to Germany, if I go to France, if I go to the UAE, if I'm in Central America and I'm there illegally, guess what? I'm going to get deported. Now, to the next part of your question, we do need some immigration reform, which will allow people to work here, to get visas, but you can never become a citizen and you can never vote. I'm going to say that again. You can't vote and you cannot become a citizen. I'm a hardliner on this issue, and if anyone tries to jam amnesty through Congress, I will do whatever I can within my means as a member of Congress to shut this place down. Amnesty is not allowed, should not be allowed. If you got here legally, get your butt back home. Next question.
Here's the next question coming from Mike in the Franklin area. Very simple question here. When will we see the rest of the DOGE cuts being passed into law? I think he's talking about another rescission package, possibly.
Yeah, so we continue to work on that, and again, you know, I find myself in these unique positions. But you know, I literally texted Elon last night, or actually, I texted him a few days ago, and he didn't respond. So last night, I texted him back and said, "Hey, following up," and he responded this morning. But with that, you know, what Elon set up and the mechanism of DOGE and going through the contracts, it's a slow, methodical process. Sometimes they get it wrong and things have to be put back in place. But that being said, we are going to claw every single dollar out of this budget that we can through the rescission process. This town, quite frankly, and how it budgets is broken. So myself and others who are members of the Freedom Caucus or would be fiscally conservative, we're working to try to change this place. And what I'll say is it's a big ship, but it turns slowly like the Titanic. But what I would say when it comes to spending, when it comes to changing this place, it can be done with the will of a few, and that's what we continue to work on. But that being said, we did a small rescission package. It's not small, it was $9 billion. We'll continue to claw away $1 billion here, $5 billion there, and find as much waste, fraud, and abuse as we can. Look, and if we make a mistake along the way, we'll come back and we'll fix it. But you know, our founding fathers expected us, the House of Representatives, to be that arbiter, the hold that purse, to protect the future. And quite frankly, it's a national security issue, the spending of our country. And again, we have for many years overspent and borrowed way too much, and we're trying to fix it. But be patient. We continue to work on it. Like I said, Russ Vogt, director of OMB, Stephen Miller, one of the chief advisors to the President of the United States. They're both friends of mine, and I work with them very closely on these issues. And no, we are dedicated not only to strengthening and fixing immigration, to the previous question, but also trying to fix this dadgum budget and the process, which we know is broken.
Next. As I said earlier, in order to gauge the opinions of the audience here listening, we're going to ask a couple poll questions throughout the night. Here's the next poll question. Again, remember, just press 1 for yes and 2 for no in these poll questions. Question is, do you support releasing the Epstein files? 1 for yes, 2 for no. Do you support releasing the Epstein files? 1 for yes, 2 for no. There's always a bit of delay for people getting back on the phones here after they press that button. So as that little audio delay plays, Congressman, here is the next question coming out of the Columbia area, I believe. Jeff asks, will we ever have a chance to see term limits?
You know, I don't know. I've been one of those that have, signed on to advocate for term limits. We'll see. There's a small group of us who thinks that is a priority or should be a priority. But in addition to that, we've got to change how this town works. So term limits alone isn't enough. We've got to get back to actually doing a budget instead of just a continuing resolution. You know, we haven't done that for 20 years, actually passing a budget. There's supposed to be 12 appropriation bills. We haven't done that. And so it's more than just term limits. We've got to break this kind of doing it the way it's always been done. When I say always, the last 20 years, we've got to get back to going through every dollar. Look, when I was a county executive, in Murray County. We had limited resources. We pinched every penny. We accounted for every dollar. Department heads would try to give money back to the county because we knew it could be used otherwise. As mayor, a county executive, I never spent all the money that was used in my office. We always were under budget. And that's the type of mentality that we have to bring to DC. And so it's more than just term limits, which I think are a good idea. We have to get back to accountability, to actually budgeting, to accounting for every dollar, which gets back to that DOGE question, where you have these large sums of money that, quite frankly, Congress has kind of given up our authority to manage those dollars. And we've got to get back to accountability. So yes, I'll continue to advocate for term limits, but when they'll actually be implemented, who knows?
All right, we didn't remember the poll question there. We just asked previously was, do you support releasing the Epstein files? 90% people polled said yes. Only 10% said no. And Congressman, I know you touched on that briefly towards the beginning of the call, but if you wanted to respond to that poll there, 90% said yes, 10% said no.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and that's my position, I think this is an issue that's front of mind for a lot of folks. One, because the media is talking about it nonstop. The left, the Democrats are trying to make an issue out of it. But I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, is that the Democrats have had these files. They've gone through these files. You had a Republican, Senator Blackburn, in 23 try to get the files released, and it was a Democrat, Dick Durbin, who stopped it. So if there was anything of consequence in there, they would have released it. My guess is it's as damaging to them as it could be to any Republican. So that being said, yes, release the files. If there's something that has to be redacted for a national security reason, so be it. But let's get the files out there so the people, the American people, and quite frankly, there's a curiosity component to this. Look, what that guy was doing was evil. It was despicable. And again, what happened to him, he had it coming. And people I think they want closure on this story, and they want justice to be had. So if there were others involved, then let there be justice. Next question.
Congressman, I know you already touched on the Belmont issue, but this is kind of an interesting one, actually, coming from Daniel in the Franklin area. He actually says, I'm a student at Belmont. All the claims are true. Will you be looking into interviewing students to see what professors are actually teaching in our classrooms? And I know a brief response here is probably warranted because you touched on so much before, but it's interesting with the student talking there.
Yeah, and let me see if I can find it real quick. But to your point, Daniel, I think you said, is so if a teacher wants to teach a new course at Belmont, so it's a proposal form, part of the form that they have to fill out is actually a diversity statement. They have to talk about how it's DEI. So this idea that they weren't doing this is nonsense. And so in fact, it's because of whistleblowers who are taking screenshots of the forms they're filling out. They have communications with the administration. That's how we got all this information. So literally, these are screenshots from the forms that a professor would fill out if they want to do a new course. So it's true, and we have the proof. And what we've tried to do is allow Belmont to correct course. They are an amazing institution. By the way, they have an amazing medical school that was just launched roughly, year and a half ago. That is a tremendous resource for Nashville. And so not only could you go to a Vanderbilt medical school, you can go to Belmont's medical school. It's, again, a huge resource for Nashville. But I think what happens in academia is they live in a bubble. And quite frankly, most of the time it's a woke bubble, and they lose touch with the community around them. And not that I'm here to talk about politics, but my district, which is Greater Nashville, is an R9, meaning a Republican has a 9-point advantage. Donald Trump won that district by 12 points. I won it by 17. Nashville's conservative, and they're sick and tired of this crap being crammed down their throats. They don't want diversity courses. They want to be taught math, science, and English. They want rich content that they can use and learn and to prolong their careers and take into their community, not this indoctrination nonsense. So look, if they want to continue down that course, there is going to be consequences. My guess, my hope, my prayer is that Belmont does the right thing, that they follow state law, which is another topic, and that they follow federal law. So if you know someone who's experienced discrimination at Belmont or any university, I'm not just picking at Belmont, any university, we need to know about it so that they can be held accountable. And I don't care what the pretense is, sex, race, color, I don't know, your hair cut. If you were discriminated, we want to know about it, because that's not who we are in America. And this is not going to be tolerated. So you can call it some other fancy name, DEI or community or whatever the heck they're coming up with now, but it's not going to be tolerated. I'm a loud voice on this. It's got traction all across the country. The president is aware of this, so I would advise you to correct course. Next question.
We may have time for a couple questions left tonight as we wind down towards the end of the telephone town hall. But if you do want to try and get in line for one of the last questions, remember, just press *3 on your phone to get in the queue to ask Congressman Ogles a question. Don't forget to press *6 at any time during this town hall as well to sign up for our newsletter. Congressman, a question here coming from Greg from the Brentwood area. I'll just read this verbatim. Why would you vote for a bill that blows a hole through our deficit and puts our kids and grandkids paying off this for decades to come? How can we work together to solve problems when we go back to the Obama admin? I don't know if you meant the Obama admin or just a Democrat admin maybe, but that's the question. I believe he's talking about the one big beautiful bill, Congressman.
Yeah, so one of the problems I had with the bill is that some of those deficit reduction steps don't happen in the first few years. It's something that takes time to be implemented. And so that's why we met with the president. I met with the president multiple times. I met with the vice president. Again, I worked specifically with Russ Vought and Stephen Miller on some of these issues to make sure that over the course of this next 7, 8, 10-year time period that we're clawing back those monies, that we're changing how we're spending. But you're right. On the front end, there's some deficit spending, but on the back end, we're reducing that deficit. Also, what we have is with the tariffs and the amount of money that's bringing in. So it's kind of, what I said with the Titanic. It's a big ship that turns slowly. Getting this town to make cuts is tough. I talk about it every day. I fight for it every day, and we'll continue to fight for it. That's why I'm a member of the House Freedom Caucus. I'm actually on the board of the House Freedom Caucus, and this is our priority. We've got to fix this spending. And we worked with the White House to get it to a place where we can get it passed, to put us in a position so we can cut. So just know there are more cuts coming, and there's deficit reductions that happen in the next few years, but it just takes a little time to kick in. But I totally understand where you're coming from. Next question.
Congressman, this may be the last question of the night here as we wind down. This is coming from Nick from Williamson County area. He asked, what is Congress doing to codify any of President Trump's executive orders as we get closer to the midterm elections?
And that's a really important question. So what's the difference between an executive order and the House passing legislation? So one of the things we tried to do in the big, beautiful bill was codify securing the border, making sure no tax on tips, that we were reducing taxes on the working class. And so an executive order the president can sign, it takes effect, but the next administration can immediately reverse it. So we saw a lot of bad executive orders from the Biden administration that hurt our economy, that quite frankly put we, the people, at greater risk economically, but also from terrorists. And I want to touch on this terrorist component in just a moment, but we are working every day to codify the president's executive orders. I carry a lot of those, as do other members of Congress. But when you look at his executive orders, I'm one of those that typically carries his bills. Some of them, like purchasing Greenland, Mount Rushmore, or a third term. But part of that is to drive, some may say, well, those are ridiculous. Well, what it does is it forces the conversation. So why would you offer that? Because you're drawing a contrast between Joe Biden and Barack Hussein Obama and the vision and the leadership from President Trump. And when you look at the southern border, so I'm on financial services, which is, again, I call it the nerd committee because it has to do with banking and the economy and interest rates. But I'm also on the national security side of that equation, and whether it's terrorism or China or the cartels, follow the money. And what I can tell you is the cartels, because of Joe Biden and their reach into the United States of America, and I've seen the classified information, they have a network, a distribution network that would rival FedEx. And that should scare the crap out of you, that the cartels in Mexico and South and Central America have literally divided this country up into regions and territories, and they have distribution in virtually every small town in America. Meanwhile, because Joe Biden allowed the southern border to be wide open and people could not only just walk across the border, could drive across the border, we know we have terror cells active in the United States of America. And we're working to find them. We're working to shut them down. In some cases, we're surveilling them. And I'm also on the Homeland Security Committee. So it's important that we codify, as you say, these executive orders, that we make our country safer, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's the southern border, whether it's cutting spending. And that's one of the things that I fight for every single day and why I'm ranked as one of the most conservative members of Congress. Grant?
All right, Congressman Nobles, and with that, I think we're going to wrap up the questions for tonight. So I'll kick it back to you just for any closing remarks on anything that's going on tonight or things to come.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for being on the call and being online. Obviously, as a member of Congress, it's been a very busy 6 months with the president. I'm one of the members of Congress that works closely with the administration. I carry a lot of the bills for the White House. I've been to the White House quite often, working with the administration. We'll continue to do so. But a lot of people, I'm out and about in the district on the weekends, going to events, and I try to get to those events that aren't necessarily political in nature, but whether it's a fish fry or ice cream supper, to get out into the community and hear from you. So just know that as I work through the district, I'll do my best to get to your community. If there are events coming up, please let us know. If I can't be there physically, we'll try to send someone from the team so we can hear from you, we can talk to you, we can know what concerns you, and I'll continue to fight for our veterans. I mean, this CBOC, this community-based outpatient clinic that's going to be based in Nashville, is really going to be transformative in its ability to provide care for our veterans. Like I said, there's 26,488 veterans just in Nashville or Davidson County, but there's even more of that in the surrounding community, whether it's Rutherford County or Murray County, et cetera. And we'll continue to work to make sure that our veterans are provided for. But we do want to hear from you, and we do listen. I get your emails, I get your letters, I get your notes. The staff takes it very seriously. And so if there's an event in your community and if we can get there, we'll do our best to get there. With that, thank you for being on the phone and being online. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And God bless you. God bless America.